Our guest today is Chris Garrett, who shares a powerful reminder about something many of us struggle with: asking for help. Through personal experience, Chris explores why raising your own flag matters and how reaching out can be one of the strongest things we do.
Welcome, everybody, to Difference Talks. I'm Barry LeBove. I am the founder and president of LeBove Marketing Communications and Training. I'm the author of The Power of Differentiation, and we have a podcast today that I think is really, really going to be wonderful. It's with an old friend of mine, Chris Garrett. Chris is the director of consumer marketing for a phenomenal company that everybody should know, and that is FootJoy. They make the shoes that are so great in golf, the gloves, et cetera, the accessories. Tremendous company. I worked with Chris many, many years ago, about a decade or so. We're going to talk a little bit about what he does, but then we're going to veer off and we're going to talk about something really personal, and that is his book. His book came out recently. It's called 10 Things My Tumor Taught Me, and it is a phenomenally inspiring book about the acoustic neuroma that he found out he had, which is a brain tumor, but it's not cancerous, but it is a serious and rare brain tumor. And he's going to tell his story. And this story, by the way, everybody, should affect and maybe help all of us if we run into some difficult challenges in our health or other places of our lives. So I'll turn it over to you, Chris Garrett. Tell us a little bit about yourself. It's been about 2 decades with FootJoy and Acushnet company?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mentioned to you this separately, but you had a guest on recently, Tara Halliday, that was talking about the imposter syndrome. And I found myself thinking about that this morning as I was thinking about coming on with you. But you've had some amazing guests on, and I'm grateful to be here. So thank you. I've been with the Acushnet company for 20 years this year. I started my career there with Titleist. I've now been focused on the FootJoy brand for the past 17. What better dream could you have to live than to work for the leading golf company in the world, right? So I'm very fortunate to be there. I love what I do. I'm a marketing professional. So essentially my team is responsible for bringing to market anything that has to do with FootJoy in terms of brand communication, storytelling, product introductions. We get to determine how that comes out to you, the golfer, whether it's on your TV or favorite social platforms or media articles that you may read. So I love the company. I love what I do, and I'm grateful for the time that I've had there for sure.
The FootJoy team, when I got to work with you guys, I loved because it was very team-oriented. A bunch of athletic men and women who played golf. Some of you were great golfers, and the worst of the bunch were good golfers. It was a really great experience, and the brand itself is, in my opinion, the best. I will only buy FootJoy shoes, as an example, because they're the only ones that fit me. So I love the brand. Now, we're going to go talk about this book. And this book is about something that you dealt with out of the blue. And here's my wish for today, Chris. I hope that not only do people learn a wonderful, wonderful story from you, but they also learn things that they must do in their lives when they're having to tackle some of these tough situations.
So February 1st, 2024, I woke up that morning, and I discovered I didn't have hearing in my right ear. And I wasn't too concerned. I assumed it was just sort of fluid buildup or wax buildup, and it returned fairly quickly, but it never really returned 100%. I always felt like from that time on, I had maybe 50 to 70% of my normal hearing. And so, like many of us, I thought I should get it checked. And so I went to a minute clinic. They thought it was allergies and prescribed Flonase. So I did that for 2 to 4 weeks. I went to another one. They also prescribed Flonase, which I did for another 2 to 4 weeks. And the third one I went to, so now you're a couple months on from that morning. He initially thought it was a similar allergic reaction type situation, but he took a little bit extra time and he discovered that the eardrum wasn't vibrating. Now, that to me, I didn't really understand what that meant either. So, I thought maybe we attach some cables and jump start it, or I don't know, flip a switch or do something easy just to get that eardrum vibrating again. But, I still at that time wasn't too concerned that anything bigger was going on. To me, at that point, it was still an ear issue. And so he sent me to see a ENT, ear, nose, and throat specialist. They did a further scope, confirmed the eardrum wasn't vibrating, and recommended an MRI. So I believe it was June 29th, I had an MRI done. On July 1st, I got a call from the office, and the first thing they said was, "This is not cancer." So
Good.
I was very appreciative that that's how they started the call. Not that I had really started to think that it could be something that far down in terms of severity, but it just sort of, and it helped me relax immediately. This is not cancer. Okay, what is it? That was sort of the next question, and that's when the term acoustic neuroma or vestibular schwannoma was first introduced. And I wasn't sure what that meant. They did at that time mention it was in a place where it interfered with three main nerves: your hearing nerve, your balance nerve, and the nerve that controls your face. So that was sort of the information I got at that time. So now at this time, I've learned that my eardrum's not vibrating, and that's probably due to a tumor that's growing somewhere in my internal ear canal. And that's about all the information I had. It was called an acoustic neuroma. I'm very fortunate to be married to my wife. We've been married almost 23 years. She is a medical savant, so she's a pharmaceutical sales rep, but she is fascinated by all types of medicine, conditions, the human body, and so she got on the case very quickly and we started to learn what an acoustic neuroma was. But we had a lot more to come our way after that initial diagnosis.
Well, a couple of things. First of all, God bless the third doctor who took, as you said, a little more time. So how often in our lives, everybody, it's like, yeah, how are you doing? Yeah, okay, get out of here. And that's your healthcare experience. This person potentially saved your life, or certainly saved so much frustration in your life because this person took a little extra time. Another thing in this that's really important, God bless the person who called you from the doctor's office who said, first of all, this is not cancer, okay? So I applaud that. And again, this is how we can help each other in our lives. Somebody gave you a little extra time. Somebody also had empathy that, hey, wait a minute, you might be freaking out over this. As I read your book, your wife, Jessica, she jumped in, and I want you to talk about this a little bit because I think this is super important in our healthcare and in how we take care of ourselves. It's very easy to go down the street to the closest doctor and be comfortable. But ladies and gentlemen, this acoustic neuroma is a rare tumor. This is rare. I looked it up. I mean, it's only a very few times a year do doctors look at this. It's very seldom. So it's not something that the average really good doctor down the street is versed in. Can you share what Jess and you did once you learned this, Chris? Because this could help save somebody's life as well. How did you find the doctors you went to?
Yeah, so first you made a very good point. That clinical technician that took a little extra time to discover the eardrum. I mean, we've gone back to try to find him, and he's been relocated elsewhere. But I truly think he saved me from a much darker future. So the first place we went was Boston. Obviously, we live about 40 minutes away. It's known as one of the best medical cities in the world. So that was the first place we went. That's where we started to learn that this was more of a brain situation than an ear situation. So I was given three options once we talked through the condition. One was wait and see. We can wait to see if the tumor grows, expands, or does anything over the next 6 months that cause us to consider one of the other two scenarios. The second scenario was treating it with radiation. So what radiation would do is, and these are all layman's terms because that's how I operate when it comes to medicine. The radiation would essentially freeze the tumor and prevent it from growing any further. The downside of radiation was if at any point we needed to go back in to do surgery, everything in there would be compromised by the radiation. So all the nerves would be a little bit more susceptible to permanent damage, and it would just be a more compromised environment. And the third option was surgery, to go in and surgically remove the tumor. And so this was the moment where, for me, and I remember it vividly, this went from an ear issue to a brain tumor. And that, I still get the chills when I say it. I mean, that to me is just so hard to understand. Like, I'm healthy. I would consider myself successful. Like I have children that I'm watching grow up, and a brain tumor to me is just so far removed from anything that I had ever even contemplated. So that's when reality really hit, and I started to get scared. So the first thing my wife did, again, God bless her, is she looked at the foremost experts in the United States for acoustic neuromas. And there are probably 5. And then the one that we found was at University of California, San Diego, UCSD. And we discovered very quickly that this team has done over 3,000 acoustic neuroma procedures. They have a dedicated facility. They have a residence hall where you can stay pre and post surgery to recover, under the care of the doctors. They have iPads in the room that control the shades and all the controls of the room. And equally as important, you have your own room. For me, the thought of being in the hospital for 2 weeks, and we ended up being there for 3 weeks with a roommate as I'm recovering from brain surgery, was not something that I thought I could manage. So, but first and foremost, this was the team that had done more of these than anyone in the world. And that for us was enough to pick up and pack up and go out and stay in California for 2 and what ended up being 3 weeks. But you're right, Barry. The easiest thing to do is to use the doctor nearby, especially near Boston. Like, we would assume that they're the best at what they do, and in many cases they are. But for us, we wanted to make sure that we explored all options. If someone was going to cut into the back of my head and explore all the wiring in there and move all the cobwebs aside and find this acoustic neuroma, we needed to make sure that they were the very best. And that's what we were able to do.
Now, when we come back from break, we're going to go into a few other specifics, but I want to highlight what you did with Jess. And that is, in some ways, you did the least convenient, the highest amount of hassle that you could do to take care of this, because you had to leave the 2 kids, your Bernie Doodle, your jobs, all behind for 2, it turns out 3, by the way, because you had a good plan that it might take 3 weeks, and it did. And wonderful lesson for all of us. And what you said, I think, is perfect, because I was told this by a doctor one time. If you have a rare or super critical disease, go to the doctor, where you walk in and you sit in that waiting room, and there are another 15 people with exactly the same situation you have that this doctor specializes in, so that he or she is not going, wow, I've never seen that before. You don't hear that from that doctor. And that's what you and your wife did. But it was a hassle. You had to leave home, and it was scary. So when we come back, we're going to talk about a couple of other things that I'd like you to talk about. And you call it in the book, raise your own flag, which is a code for saying, hey, raise your hand when you need help. Don't be too proud. Turn to your friends. I think that's really important. And another thing we're going to talk about is how small gestures, not just the big ones, but the small ones, can mean so much when you're going through these situations. So we'll be right back with Chris Garrett.
Difference Talks is a LaBeouf production. Our focus is differentiation, and we believe it's more important than ever to differentiate your brand and experience. Contact us at labeouf.com for a conversation. We'd love to connect with you.
Welcome back, everybody. We are with Chris Garrett. He wrote a book. I'm asking you to find it and to buy it. It'll take about an hour and a half to read it. It is great. 10 Things My Tumor Taught Me. He had a non-cancerous but very serious acoustic neuroma, which is a brain tumor. And one thing that you mentioned on break, I'd like you to share about second opinions, because this, again, could influence somebody in our audience. Go right ahead.
Yeah, I've never sought a second opinion in my life for anything. We met with the team in Boston. We learned all about an acoustic neuroma and what my 3 treatment options were. And I felt reasonably comfortable with the team. I mean, this was Boston. Like, this has to be the best of the best. So this is the team we go with. My wife just had an uneasy feeling about the team there. And so she explored, as I mentioned, the 5 or 6 teams in the country that specialized in acoustic neuromas. And we had phone calls with 2 of them. And those phone calls were just eye-opening to the different interpretations of the 3 options, the interpretation of what the short and long-term implications could be, and just the overall treatment process from arriving at the facility to departing the facility. So for anyone that's considering a procedure that we all have different levels of what a serious procedure may be, but if you're worried and you don't feel 100% comfortable in the team that would be doing it, look for other options and at least have the phone call. I guess that's what surprised me was a second opinion doesn't mean driving to the office and setting up an appointment and going through sort of months of waiting. It's a phone call, and most of these medical teams are more than happy to have it. So trust your gut. If there's any level of hesitation in the team that you've spoken with originally, seek out a second opinion. It's 100% worth it.
All right. I'm going to go through the book and some of the highlights. I'd like you to share what these mean to you. So talk about You Matter to Many.
This one caught me off guard, I would say. So I'm great friends with Michael Breed, who some of you may know. He's been on the Golf Channel. He's one of the best golf instructors in the world, but way more important than that, he's one of the most positive people I've ever met in my life. He's self-appointed the mayor of Positive Town, as he likes to call it. And I will tell you, if he's the mayor of Positive Town, I'm moving in tomorrow, because he has a way of looking at life that is just so refreshing. So he's been a great influence on me. And as I was going through this process, we had several discussions. And at one point he said, you talk a lot about what people mean to you, but do you ever think about what you mean to other people? And it stopped me in my tracks, quite honestly. Of course I'd never thought that. I mean, it feels really selfish to think of what I mean to other people, even my spouse, never mind my parent and acquaintances and colleagues and things like that. It's just, it's a different way of thinking about the relationships that you have in your life, that not only are you choosing to have people in your life, but people are choosing you for a very specific reason. You have something to offer that they want in their life. And like I said, it just flipped things for me. And I don't think about that often, but I do think about it periodically. Like, I have something to offer people, and the people that are in my life have chosen me to be in theirs for a very specific reason, and that should make you feel really good, honestly. So thank you to Michael for that advice. It truly just turned things around for me and made me think of my relationships a little bit different.
It also gives you another reason to keep fighting and fighting hard, because you do matter to so many people. Here's another one I want you to share about, and you call it raise your own flag. Can you share what that means?
Raising your own flag means asking for help when you need it. And it's really hard to do. I think many of us, when we're struggling and we're going through job loss, or we've had tragedy in our life, or we're going through a medical issue, but one of the first things we do is internalize and just think, I can do this. I'm going to figure it out. I don't want to bother people with this problem. I think we all understand that everybody has a cross to bear in their life on some level. And you don't want to bother people with your problems. But, through therapy, I've learned that, if you don't ask for help, oftentimes you're hoping that the help comes, and if it doesn't, you're disappointed. So not only are you not getting the help that you need, but you're disappointed because people haven't shown up in the way that you hoped they would or expected them to. So raising your own flag is basically saying, I'm not going to wait and hope that the help arrives. I'm going to ask very specifically for it. And for me, that came in two ways. I love golf. I play golf as much as I can. It's a great escape for me. So, I spent a couple weeks thinking, maybe people will put something together, get a couple groups out, and we'll have a good time, and it'll be fun. And, maybe they'll do something like a tournament. We'll do a trophy or something. And, I just sat and hoped that would happen. About a month before I was leaving, I decided that I was going to do that. I was going to plan an event, and I was going to invite people to play in it, and I was going to call it the Brain Tumor 2-Man, and it was going to be a 2-man event. We were going to have a trophy, and we were going to award jackets to the winners, and just started building this thing. And once people heard about it, they started contributing giveaways and prizes and all sorts of different things. And it ended up being exactly what I needed. It was a fantastic day. We had 20 people, we played in the tournament, we had drinks and food after, and it was just the perfect way for me to go off, surrounded by the friends that I care about and that care about me. And it just provided me all the support that I needed. So that was the first one. And the second one's a little bit deeper. The day I was walking into the hospital, I remember it very vividly. We had to be there at about 5:30 in the morning, and my wife and I got in the car from where we were staying, which was right nearby, and we drove over to the hospital. And the whole time in, I'm thinking about my father. My parents are very supportive. They've been supportive my whole life. For some reason, I needed to hear from him that day. I hadn't heard from him for a few days. He hadn't reached out, just asking how I was doing. He's a very sort of introverted Irish Catholic from the old school, and a lot of times we just bury our feelings, and we're not as good at sharing them as we could be. And so I was walking in the door, and I could feel the tension building in me that I can't believe I didn't hear from him. Like I'm just, man, I can't believe it. Like, your son's going in for brain surgery. Like, I'm just surprised. I knew he was praying constantly for me. I knew he was thinking about me, but I needed to hear from him. And so I stopped before we walked in. I said to my wife, I just need a second. And I called him. Fortunately, it was 3 hours later on the East Coast. And he answered the phone. He said, "Hey, how's it going?" I said, "Well, I'm walking through the doors of the hospital, and I just wanted you to know that I'm going to be okay. And I love you." And that was it. And I just wanted him to know that I was going to be okay, and that I loved him. And as soon as I said it, I felt just this calmness come over me. And I I couldn't imagine what would have happened if I went into that room, laid on that operating table, and I hadn't done that. I just would have had this level of frustration and maybe guilt that I would have carried with me. And, to be free of that and to proactively call him and share that was just such a huge moment for me. One, to do it, and to do it in that moment was just a massive turning point for me.
Chris, that's really heartfelt and inspiring, because I can relate to wondering, well, why didn't this person do this? Why aren't they doing whatever? And the person who's the one who loses from it would be me in that case. I'm missing out on it. And what you shared, again, is so great for our audience. I don't want to miss a few of the other highlights that I'd like you to share. Talk about, if you can, small gestures, big impact.
For many of us, when we have people in our life going through something like this, we think about the big things that we should do. I want to make dinner for them. I want to send them a gift basket. I want to take them away for a weekend before they go. And oftentimes we think so big that nothing gets done, right? Like, we think of these big grand ideas, and then time passes and conflicts happen. Maybe you don't do anything because you're just struggling to execute the plan that you put in place. What I discovered in this process was a simple text message from someone has so much power and meaning. And certainly when you're going through a big situation like I was, you hope and you expect to hear from a lot of people. But I think what I learned is, the messages that meant the most was like the time after the surgery, maybe 9 months later, when you hear from someone that just said,
Yeah.
"Hey, just thinking about you, just wanted to know that, you're in my mind and just checking in." And that to me was what I took from it. So, we all have moments in the day where somebody crosses our mind. It could be someone you used to work with, or, someone you played pickleball with 6 months ago, or, an old high school friend, and they just pop in your mind for some reason. And, we'll think about them for a few seconds, and then the moment will pass and we'll go back to what we were doing. Don't let that moment pass. I think that's what I learned is when somebody pops in my head, I send them a text, or I find them on social media and I say, "Hey, I was just thinking about you today. I hope everything's good with you. Take care." And maybe they're having a really tough day. Maybe a relative passed away recently. And for them to get that acknowledgement that someone was thinking about them is so powerful.
You also talk about find your joy. And I think as you share that, also share to folks, you made it through surgery. You had a hiccup, you had to go back in. And now today, it's not like everything's perfect. It's not like everything is 100% perfect, but you're finding your joy. Can you share that?
Yeah, it's a tough one because it's something I'm constantly hoping to do, but I don't think I gave it as much attention as maybe I should have previously. Finding your joy, it doesn't have to be big things. I mean, joy for me can happen in so many different ways. It can be taking my dog out to go to the bathroom in the morning and there's a spectacular sunrise happening. Just taking the moment to appreciate that, like, wow, that is an unbelievable moment to experience in the morning. There's so much, I hate to say this as negatively as I will, but there's so much pain in the world and there's so much struggle. And, like I said, we're all carrying crosses, on some level. It's really easy to stay down in that negative place. And I think many of us have found times where we've maybe stayed down there a little bit longer than we wanted to. And it's really difficult to dig yourself out. I think in this book, I've hopefully given many ways to do that. You have a village of people that support you, and planning a dinner or going for a walk with someone in your village can help pull you out of that place. And raising your own flag can do that. Hey, I'm really struggling. Could you meet me for a drink tonight and just chat a little bit? Small gestures like doing something for someone, like reaching out to someone and saying, "I was thinking of you today. Could we, have a quick call just so I can hear your voice?" And then finding your joy. Like, what are the little things that can help pick you up? If you can really think about those little things in the moment and just acknowledge the fact that this is something I enjoy and I'm really happy to be doing this thing, I think it can start to help either pull you out of that rut or maybe prevent you from sliding down back into it.
You just mentioned your father. We cannot end this discussion before we share your mother's advice. Why don't you share all of that too?
Yeah, I mean, my mother is, she's as close to a living saint as they come. And I truly mean that. She's just an amazingly beautiful, positive, spiritual woman. And I guess that worked against me in some ways growing up. You know, she always gave the advice of everything happens for a reason. And as many of us can attest to, when you're going through a really difficult period, again, it's a health issue or personal relationships or career issues, and someone says that to you, it almost minimizes the moment for you. Like, yeah, okay, well, explain to me why this is happening. You know, what's the reason that I got fired from this job? Or, you know, what's the reason that this person in my life passed away unexpectedly? Like, please tell me the reason for that. But as I've learned through this process, like, what could possibly be a good reason for me to have a brain tumor? Like, I'm healthy, I'm young, I'm you know, I'm parenting my children, I'm trying to be successful. Like, what is the possible reason that this could be happening? And, you know, a lot of times, most times, you don't really understand it till you're a few weeks or months out. And then you look back and say, I get it. You know, the reason was for me to write this book, for example. Like, I didn't go into this thinking that, you know, a book would come of it. But as I was in recovery and I was sitting overlooking the sunrises in California, just having a lot of time to reflect, I was taking notes on my phone, just thoughts I was having and ideas, and just really spending time reflecting on where I've been and going through this process. And, you know, months later, I look back at these notes and I thought, you know, there's something here. I feel like there's like lessons that I could pull from this. And, you know, it doesn't always result in a book, but I guess the long story short is, you know, if you can be patient and give yourself time to heal through whatever you're going through, and then find some time to reflect and think, what have I just gone through and what have I learned from it? I think you're going to find that there are some lessons from all of it. I think you'll understand that you've grown and you've learned and you've maybe benefited in some ways that you could never have anticipated as you were going through it.
Well, I'm highly, highly recommending the book, 10 Things My Tumor Taught Me by Chris Garrett. Find it on Amazon. I ordered it. It was here within days. It's a quick read. It's emotional. It means something. And there is a reason you had to go through this, and you've turned this into something that can help others. I urge every single person that watched or listened to this to not only buy this book, but also to absorb what Chris shared. And there were lessons in here that can save lives, or at the very minimum, make lives better. So I thank you, Chris, for your time today.
If it can help one person, then I'm just eternally grateful. So thank you for the discussion. It's great to see you again, and I look forward to connecting again.
I thank you too. Everybody, this has been Difference Talks. Chris Garrett, 10 Things My Tumor Taught Me. Chris Garrett. Thank you, everybody. Until next time.
Thank you for joining us on Difference Talks. All of us at LaBeouf are proud to celebrate great people with inspiring messages. Difference Talks was created, produced, engineered, and performed by the LaBeouf team. Even the music is original. Contact us at labeouf.com to learn how to differentiate your brand and give your team a sense of significance and meaning.